I've been doing a lot of thinking about perfect timing, and I've come to this conclusion. Perfect timing sucks. Getting that last slice of pizza, showing up to the light and it turning green as soon as you get there, and going to get a haircut and there being no line in front of you. These are all examples of good timing. In some cases, good timing can change your entire life. There are countless stories of someone being in the right place at the right time and their path turning a completely different way. But if we're all being completely honest, we hardly remember all the times we had good timing. I mean, it's a lot easier to remember the bad timing over the good. It's easier to remember a time where you got caught doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing. And it's also easier to remember a time when your car broke down and you're already on your way to being bankrupt. I often relate bad timing with Murphy's Law. You know the one, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. I mean, I can remember countless times where bad timing turned into the worst possible timing ever in the existence of man. But obviously you didn't click on this video to hear about good or bad timing. Well, in a way you did. See, perfect timing sucks. And there's really only one way you ever get that perfect time. For good timing, there's usually a good amount of luck involved. And I've heard it said like this. Luck is when preparedness and opportunity meet. And we could say the same thing about bad timing. I mean, a lot of us say that bad timing is just having bad luck. And if we think about it, bad luck is really just lack of preparation leading to a missed opportunity. But perfect time is a mixture of both, and that's why it sucks. Now, you're probably really confused by that, so let me clear it up a little bit. The only time you get perfect timing is when God has already set it up. Now, you're probably more confused because I just related bad timing with God's timing. But don't worry, I'm going to clear it up in just a bit. Have you ever wondered how God's timing never seems to come through when you need it? I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in perfect timing. I believe that God has perfect timing. But I think we can all agree that whenever it shows up, it's not really convenient for us. That's where many of us have been looking at God's timing all wrong. And I must admit, I am guilty of this. But then again, who isn't? I have to believe that I'm not the only one who's experienced God at an inconvenient time. Luckily, we don't have to go that far. See, in the Bible, in Exodus chapters 3 through 4, we find Moses talking to the flame-resistant bush. Or that's at least what I like to call it, because if you're going to call it a burning bush, it sort of has to burn. Regardless, at this point, Moses has been running from Egypt for 40 years. And just to put that into perspective, when Moses was 40, that's when Pharaoh tried to kill him. So he ran away from Egypt, he got married, and kind of just left it as that. So when he's 80, that's when, and you guessed it, he has the encounter with the burning bush. And that's when God speaks to Moses and tells him, yo, set my people free. Now, I know you've probably heard this story millions of times. You're probably sick of it by now. But just give me a minute and I promise you I can relate it to your life. Now, if I asked you guys right now if you had ever made an excuse in your entire life to get out of a situation, how many of you could honestly say that you have never given an excuse? It's alright, you can say yes. See, that's the thing. We're human. And so was Moses. See, we all make excuses, and that's what Moses did. See, when Moses started asking God why him? Why Moses? See, Moses didn't think much of himself. And so Moses was trying to make an excuse saying, no, God, you don't want to use me. I'm not that special. And besides, if I were to go, they wouldn't believe me. I would need someone greater than me for them to even believe me. And so God says this. God says, tell them I am has sent you. And so Moses says, okay, even if I tell them that God sent me, I can't prove it. I can't do anything special. And so, to that excuse, God says, yo, here's some special powers, and they're gonna believe you from that. And finally, Moses makes his last excuse. He starts telling God, but God, I don't speak too well, I stutter, I'm not the guy you want. And I find that funny, Because once Moses agrees to walk in God's timing, that's when Moses starts to have the best time of his life. And I say that in the sense of Moses walked in his calling. Moses became the leader of the Israelites, and Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, which I also think is funny. See, in Numbers 12:3, which Moses wrote, it says this: "Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth." I mean, let's look at that. There's Moses, this guy who didn't believe in himself too much. He would give excuses as to why he couldn't do things, why he couldn't walk in God's timing. Turn into the man who would write about himself, calling himself the most humble man. This story makes me wonder how many of us have been called by God, that God told us, time to get out of our comfort zone, time to move on to our next season, but we just wouldn't budge. And I'm not telling you that you have to wait 80 years for God to have an encounter with you. I mean, 1 Timothy says, don't let anyone look down on you because of your age. You know, it doesn't matter how young you are, God can still use you. It's just all about God's timing. The point I'm trying to make is God's timing is both good and bad for us. Good in the sense of it's God's plan. God has a perfect plan for your life and for mine. But it's bad because we want our own plan. You know, we want to make our own plan. We want to follow our plan. And we want to get the rewards of our plan. And when we don't get our way, I mean, we get upset. We make excuses. But God has a perfect plan. So no matter how good your plan is, God's plan is always better. So today I want to challenge you to work in God's timing. You know, if God's called you that now is your time to move on to your next season, follow that. And if God's told you, hey, now it's time to wait. Now it's time for you to see what I'm going to do. Then go with that. I leave you with this verse, and it's from 2 Peter 3:9, and it reads like this: God isn't late with his promise as some measure lateness. He is restraining himself on account of you, holding back the end because he doesn't want anyone lost. He's giving everyone space and time to change. So, with that, God bless you. I'll see you next time.